Good morning. We're in video 3 of understanding the Stevie Kidd pathway. At this stage you would be starting to do your first session. Yesterday was about 1 and 2, which was about the engagement. Now video 3 is that you're now on board. Where do we start? We start with the disc profiling. Disc profiling for me is about empathy. It's about understanding yourself, but it's being aware of being able to understand others. That's the factor of doing disc profiling. Also, it's about emotional and your behaviours. What I love about disc profiling is once people start to review the report, how they light up that Christmas tree. They sit in front of me and they'll go through the report and we start to analyse the things that actually jump out of them. What does that mean, by the way? What it means is that the unconscious and conscious mind are starting to communicate. And basically when we see that and we get that, we then take it to a base called self-awareness. Once we get it to the base of self-awareness, we then ask, where did that behaviour come from? Where was the root cause of it being embedded? Remember, when you're born a blank canvas. You grow into this person, and this person has multiple behaviours, but where do they all come from? And that's what we're doing in the disc profile. It's a really, really enlightening process, and it can take up to 3 or 4 months of consistently working through the document for you really, really understand what's going on. Because think about it right now. Do you understand all your unconscious responses? Of course you don't, because they're unconscious. Somebody like me can pay attention and watch you go from conscious belief system, unconscious responses, and all I'm doing is watching the gears of a car, and I'm watching how you navigate through the 3 different parts of your mind. So that's the first part for video 3. The second part, I would say to you, once we've explored that, I'm starting to then pay attention to the life wheel and how people tell their stories in each part of the life wheel, which we'll talk more about later on. But the concept of what I'm initially doing is, this is them telling me the model of their world. So we've now got the behaviours, but now I'm starting to pay attention to the life assessment and how they tell their story. When are they associated and when are they disassociated? And one example I would give you is when people start to talk about career and business within the life wheel, I start to listen and pay attention to the people's stories who own companies. And 9 times out of 10, they're telling their story that they're in it. And this is the part, because once I stop listening to what they have to say, we sit back and we just stare at one another. And then there's this awkward silence. And then I ask them, when do you know when to work in it and when to work on it? I'm always in it, that's just the way it is. Where did that belief come from? And then they said this to me. Well, you see, my dad had a business. All right, what did your dad do then? They start talking about their father. And then the father and the behaviours are the exact same as the behaviours they're having just now. And then I just ask the question. You see, it's not for me to tell people what to do. It's just for me to facilitate information and ask questions. So I just asked them, is that where you mirrored that behaviour? And then I pause and I look away, and then they look at me and they go, do you know, I was always told never to think about being this big player. I was always told I was never enough. I was always told, don't become this big player, just be happy with what you've got. There's no need for you to become one of these big players. And all of a sudden then I'm looking at them and I'm still silent. And then I'm saying, so what have you learned from that then? Then they turn around and they look at me and they say, that's why I have that behaviour, isn't it? And then I take them into the future at that point, because I want to pull them away. I don't want them to go to that energy. The awareness has been created. Now what I do is I get them to imagine stepping to one side and going right into the future. And I say to them, can you connect to my story? And they'll say, yes. We understand where that behaviour comes from, correct? Yep. We understand what reality looks like just now. Is that correct? Yep. Right, can we just park that just now? And can you come out the car and come with me and we'll go on another journey? And then what I do is I take them away into the future, maybe 12, 24 months later, because you need to give them a timeline that they'll believe. And then I ask them to go above and we're going to look down. And we're going to look down where they're not in it. We see what they're doing at another level, but he's not even there. And they say, where am I? What am I doing? And I'm like, you're not in the business, you're over there. You're working on the business. We've built a structure that people are working in the business, but you're up here with your board working on your business. How does that make you feel? And that's all I ask. And what I do is I then bring them back to the present, and then I remind them about where the behaviour came from. I remind them of what's going on there now, But then I say to them, are you more drawn to what could happen in the future? And the secret at that point is to connect them more to the future than the past and the present. Because what happens is when he goes back to what his dad did, that becomes a past belief. But it becomes then locked in and hardwired, because then it becomes a predictable future, which means he'll never change. He'll just constantly believe that he's got to work on the business, work in the business. So the concept of what I'm doing there with you, it's more in depth than that. But I've given you the simplicity of what it is and what I do and how I do it. Imagine me doing that across every area of your life, and then start to give you the absolute matrix of how to run your business properly. Then we start to look more about where you're living emotionally. Then we start to do more about the present and the future, and we forget the past. See how it all starts to come together? Hope you could follow that one. Hope you could understand it. I hope you can imagine what would happen if you engaged in the pathway and how your life can change, and we're only at video 3. Look out for video 4 this afternoon. It will be a belter.